AM radio, an op-ed column, and Fox News is not enough. I want a center-right nation to fight for its soul, and its soul is represented in the arts. Its soul is represented in a world in which media is everything. AM radio is the lowest form of communication. It's tinny, it's not robust, it's not Avatar. I want Avatar. I want the right to enter the world of media to the extent and invest in media the way that the left does.
The fake media is trying to silence us, but we will not let them, because the people know the truth. The fake media tried to stop us from going to the White House, but I'm president and they're not.
You're listening to the Curt Schilling Podcast, a Breitbart.com podcast. The podcast starts now. Here's Curt with today's headlines.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Curt Schilling's podcast. Podcast number 4 today. We're going to talk to James Delingpole. This is the podcast. James Delingpole and Sonnie Johnson, two of the premier Breitbart podcasters on Breitbart.com. Sonnie has her own show on SiriusXM page at 125, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Did She Say That? Podcast is weekly on Wednesdays. Well, they're both pretty amazing people. I want to get right to it today because there's some good stuff, some laughable stuff. I want you to listen, first of all, to this is a June 2014 interview. This is Barack Obama talking to George Stephanopoulos, talking about children at the border, crossing the border. And listen to President Obama, at the time, President Obama's words of warning to them. Listen to how he describes this.
Our message absolutely is don't send your children unaccompanied on trains or through a bunch of smugglers. We don't even know how many of these kids don't make it and may have been waylaid into sex trafficking or killed because they fell off a train. We have no way of tracking that. So that is our direct message to the families in Central America. Do not send your children to the borders. If they do make it, they'll get sent back. More importantly, they may not make it.
Remember the moral outrage we're listening to, which much of it is over fake video and lies about what's happening at the border. Much like when everybody was talking about DACA and deporting, that liberals were saying, that we're going to be trucking kids back across the border and blah, 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 and making it out to be something it isn't. Now, the outrage over the policy now, which is an extension of the policy that President Obama and Clinton were a part of. The difference is that both of those guys didn't enforce the law. This president has made it clear he's going to enforce the law. I was thinking about this last night. So if I walk onto private property, trespassing, and I get arrested for violation of that law, do I get to take my kid to jail? And the answer is no, and that's the answer. President Trump apparently was pressured into making a change and changing his mind. I want you to listen to what he said yesterday about the executive order he signed into law yesterday.
We're signing an executive order I consider to be a very important executive order. It's about keeping families together while at the same time being sure that we have a very powerful, very strong border, and border security will be equal, if not greater, than previously. So we're going to have strong, very strong borders, but we're going to keep the families together. I didn't like the sight or the feeling of families being separated. There's a problem that's gone on for many years, as you know, through many administrations, and we're working very hard on immigration. It's been just left out in the cold. People haven't dealt with it, and we are dealing with it. So step by step, just like we dealt with North Korea, we dealt with Iran, we dealt with an economy that was heading in the wrong direction, we dealt with a lot of different problems. This is one that has been going on for many decades. So we're keeping families together, and this will solve that problem. At the same time, we are keeping a very powerful border, and it continues to be a zero tolerance. We have zero tolerance for people that enter our country illegally.
That's what happens when you have someone who isn't a politician. This guy is not he's a pragmatist. He's a problem solver. And Washington has never seen that. I was just thinking during that soundbite, it just hit me. Do you realize, and I truly believe this. He has changed our expectations from the White House forever. Conservative Americans, I'm talking about. The left would have business as usual and the left would have one of the most repulsive human beings on the planet in the White House right now in Hillary Clinton. We would have never found out anything about the FBI or the DOJ's level corruption and the horrific things that they have been privy to. So Trump does what a pragmatist does, right? I mean, this is very fluid stuff. You know, we're a nation of 300 plus million people. We're a world of billions, right? And so nothing's ever black and white. Things will change and priorities will change and the world changes daily and you have to change and adjust with it. Very much like me, he has no patience for any of that stuff. And so I don't want to wait for so-and-so to do it. I'm going to do something. And that's what he did. So then he does this, which is all of the liberals and the Democrats have been screaming about how inhumane it is and lying about it too. And on the heels of this, listen to what Chuck Schumer comes out. This is literally minutes after this all happens. You heard liberals and Democrats across the country, most of them do exactly what we knew they would do. This is Chuck Schumer talking yesterday.
The Trump administration has decided of its own will and volition to take a crueler, more callous, and indeed more expensive and time-consuming approach. As a bipartisan group of former U.S. attorneys wrote yesterday, quote, "The zero-tolerance policy is a radical departure from previous Justice Department policy and that it is dangerous, expensive, and inconsistent with the values of the institution in which we served. And yet, President Trump acts as if his hands were tied, as if it's not up to him, as if somehow Congress and Democrats are to blame for a policy his administration instituted, defended, and many members of the administration continue to defend, most recently, the Homeland Security Secretary. The truth of the matter is that the Trump administration announced this new zero-tolerance policy at the border in April.
So what? This is what snake oil salesmen do. And the left is so famous for this. They will forget or eliminate words from comments to make their point, knowing full well it's not truthful, and many times it's a lie. It's a policy. This is law that's been in effect for over a decade. It's just now, as he has said, and no one should be surprised, he's enforcing the law. That's what you do. We are a nation of laws. If you don't have laws, you can't have a nation. It's just that simple. The left is now basically, much like when they talk about gun control, they're exposing what they really want. Last night you heard late night hosts condemning the border detention, not for kids, for everybody, as if there would be no repercussions for breaking the law. And if you want those sorts of attitudes, just look at what's happening over in Europe. Europe is turning into a complete cesspool. And along those lines, there was a decision made that should it be much more prominent in the news today. The United Nations Human Rights Council is home to some of the most filthy, evil, human oppressing, dictatorial, murdering regimes on the planet. It is absolutely a fraud. It is made up of some of the worst abusers of human rights, leaders from the Middle East, China, North Korea, all of them. It's ridiculous. It is very much like the UN itself. It's outserved its usefulness. It's a sham. We're out. And God bless her, Nikki Haley, our ambassador to the UN, who, if you're ever going to see a female president in this country, she's going to be the first one. But listen to her talking about it. We're out. We pulled out. And I want you to understand, they don't take this stuff lightly. They don't do it on a whim. They do it because it sends the right message. Listen to Nikki Haley talking about our removal from the UN Human Rights Council.
For too long, the Human Rights Council has been a protector of human rights abusers and a cesspool of political bias. Regrettably, it is now clear that our call for reform was not heeded. Human rights abusers continue to serve on and be elected to the Council. The world's most inhumane regimes continue to escape scrutiny, and the Council continues politicizing and scapegoating of countries with positive human rights records in an attempt to distract from the abusers in their ranks. Therefore, as we said we would do a year ago, if we did not see any progress, the United States is officially withdrawing from the UN Human Rights Council. In doing so, I want to make it crystal clear that this step is not a retreat from human rights commitments. On the contrary, we take this step because our commitment does not allow us to remain a part of a hypocritical and self-serving organization that makes a mockery of human rights. There are several countries on the Human Rights Council who do share our values. Many of them strongly urged us to remain engaged in the Council. They are embarrassed by the obsessive mistreatment of Israel. They share our alarm with the hypocrisy of countries like Cuba, Venezuela, Democratic Republic of Congo, and others serving on the Council. Ultimately, however, many of these like-minded countries were unwilling to seriously challenge the status quo. We gave them opportunity after opportunity and many months of consultations, and yet they would not take a stand unless it was behind closed doors. Some even admittedly were fine with the blatant flaws of the Council, as long as they could pursue their own narrow agenda within the current structure.
Paris Climate Accord, this is the Iran deal. This is the past administrations have gotten us in deals. And by the way, it's not a deal if only one side honors the agreement. These past administrations have put us into deals, put us into agreements that only we abide by. We left the Paris Climate Accord not because we don't want to abide by the laws, but because we can do a better job without them. Some of the worst polluters on the planet were in on that agreement that didn't have them abiding or honoring anything. This is what this administration is. And it's so strange and so awkward to see this and hear this, because this is what problem-solving people do. They don't. She said it. We told you a year ago. If you don't fix it, we're leaving. We gave you a year, which to me is still too long, but okay. And they're leaving. That's what this. If you've learned nothing else, go back and watch the campaign rallies from President Trump and the promises he made, and just start checking off the boxes on the ones that he continues to check off and keep as his administration goes forth. Listen, we're getting a wall. I know liberals hate to hear that. We're getting a wall, and in the end, honest to God, I really don't care who pays for it. I would prefer not to see my taxes go up, but that is one tax increase I can handle. I don't want any, but I can live with it, because the wall is going to be a priority. And you want to know something? Watch what happens when we start building the wall. The first thing that's going to happen is liberals are going to point out every single individual border crossing and say, see, the wall didn't work. That's what's going to happen. That was Nikki Haley, and that was her doing exactly what we thought they were going to do, and keeping their word again. And finally, I want you guys to I've often said, and I don't mean this in a complimentary way to me, but I've often said that if I were a politician, I would be very Trump-like. My ability to hold my tongue isn't good. I'd be tweeting left and right. My staff would be trying to shut me up, just because I can't stand liars and bullies and frauds and phonies. I don't know if you saw it, but there was a rally in Duluth, Minnesota, and if you want to understand about why the blue wave lie is a lie, or any of the other things the media tries to tell you, just look at his rallies. Look at the turnouts. Look at the reaction. Look at the energy in the room. President Trump was at a rally in Duluth, Minnesota last night, and talking about what's going on. And you'll hear at some point here, you're going to hear a heckler be getting ousted, and listen to the president as he eggs on the event and the incident. Listen up.
They make over $100 billion on that horrible trade deal where factories were emptied, so many bad things have happened, and we're going to make it a part of NAFTA, because you have to mark up thousands of miles coming through Mexico. You come up thousands of miles coming through Mexico, and we're going to stop it. Get them out of here. Get them out of here. Go home to your mom, darling. Go home. Get them out of here. Out. Was that a man or a woman? Because he needs a haircut more than I do. Really. Couldn't tell. I couldn't tell. Needs a haircut.
See, there's no need for that. First of all, as someone who lived almost my entire life in a locker room, the guy is very bad. He's just not good at talking trash. Vince, you had to laugh as hard as I did.
Oh, that was hysterical.
But, I mean, it's like, why the man or a woman comment? That's just stupid. I mean, I get it, but there's a lot better rags than that.
Yeah, there are.
That's not a haircut. That's a hair don't or something, something stupid. But the LGBT community is going to come up and say, oh, my God, does it matter if it was a man or a woman? Something stupid. It's just he opens himself up. And then, and like he does his entire administration, it makes it harder for people like me to defend him because I agree. Come on, man. That's just you're a president. Like, almost as if he almost feels like if he doesn't egg the Secret Service on, they're not going to take the person out. Like, they're going to do their job. You just focus on your speech. I'm firmly convinced that he has as bad, if not worse, ADD than I do because the ability for him to be distracted by this shiny object is incredible. So there you go. Today, James Delingpole, we're going to talk about the old white racist climate change deniers, which is apparently who we are. And then Sonnie Johnson, host of Sonnie's Corner on SiriusXM and her own podcast. Know that Sonnie's podcast, Did She Say That, is out on Wednesdays on Breitbart. James is out on Thursdays. And this one comes out at noon every day. We'll be out on Breitbart.com.
Breitbart News Daily with Alex Marlow.
Censorship is a key issue here, particularly for people on the right. Do you think it was addressed adequately?
Definitely not. It was useful to name check Diamond and Silk. It was useful to check even politicians who had campaign ads that were shut down. But in every case, Zuckerberg was allowed to essentially dismiss the case and move on.
Breitbart News Daily, weekdays at 6 a.m. Eastern on SiriusXM Patriot 125.
You're listening to the Curt Schilling Podcast. Once again, here's Curt Schilling.
Welcome back. And joining me now is someone who I've had the honor and privilege of knowing for the last couple of years. He was on Whatever It Takes every Thursday. He is one of the smartest people I've ever met when it comes to the science, the true science of climate change. He got me turned on to the fact that the 97% was actually a complete bullshit number one. Number two, he pointed me to probably the most important book I've ever read in Green Tyranny by Rupert Darwall on the climate change scam. Why it is, how it came to be. And there's actually a message there, James. His name is James Delingpole, and his podcast comes out every Thursday. Good morning, James.
Hello, Kurt. How are you?
I'm doing good, sir. I've missed you. Been a couple of weeks.
I've missed you. I mean, bro, in a kind of manly way.
Yes. It's a very heterosexual kind of a manly love. And I'm totally comfortable in my masculinity saying that. But I want to talk on something about climate change and its beginnings. But first, I'd like to ask you, Tommy Robinson. It's fallen off the radar in a heartbeat, and I don't think I'm not sure why.
I wrote a piece about this for Breitbart, I think about a week, maybe 2 weeks ago, and I think it's a very interesting case, Tommy Robinson. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that he is a decent guy. He is not a racist. He is very, very brave. He is a hero. He's an ordinary working class guy who was one of the first to speak out against the horror of the Muslim rape gangs, which are operating all over the UK in a way that is more than can possibly be ascribed to coincidence. This is a cultural war being waged by elements of the Muslim community on the kuffar, as they call us, the sort of the whites and the Sikhs and the non-believers, and it's a form of. I mean, it's a version of what you saw going on in Syria and Iraq under the Islamic State, where the kuffar were raped. It's rape as a sign of cultural supremacy, and that's what's going on. And Tommy Robinson called this out, and of course, this was an uncomfortable truth that he was uttering, and so he was punished for it. And the establishment, which is refusing to address this problem seriously, is trying to kind of play it down, cover it up, whatever, is punishing Tommy Robinson for not going away, and they want with the complicity of the lamestream media, they want to brand him as a fascist, as a thug, as far right, in order to remove his credibility and to try and distract from the truth of what he's saying. So all that is, he's undoubtedly on the side of the angels. Having said that, he made a big mistake by enabling the British establishment, the state, to put him behind bars, because he had been warned. Look, in my view, it was probably perfectly okay when he was filming outside the courtroom. Right. These guys, I think, had already been convicted. I don't think, in truth, he jeopardized any convictions. But according to our legal system, he was in breach of the law, and
he violated probation.
Selective, isn't it?
Right. But he violated probation. I mean, one of the things that we didn't get was that this guy had been in a tussle with the courts, and he had orders that he failed to abide by. That's what he got in trouble for, which, I understand the outline of that. The reasoning behind it is completely bullshit. I mean, this is
totally.
All the things that have happened to him
It reminds me of the Dinesh D'Souza case.
Yes. Yep.
Where the state is selective in its application of the law, and if you are an enemy of the state, you can commit the most trivial of offences and be given a sentence far harsher than would be accorded a really bad criminal. That's how it works.
It's a corrupt government punishing someone who they disagree with.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. And that is, in and of it, in the nutshell, James, that's the terrifying piece to this. That's what we're seeing, and that's what I'm trying to impart on people. That's what this FBI DOJ investigation is exposing. That if the government wants to destroy you, you don't have to commit a crime or do anything wrong.
Yeah.
You just have to be in opposition to what they say and what they think. And that, again, that is an Eastern Bloc European nation. I just wanted to, because, I am trying to point out, James, and as you know, I've moved to a podcast, so there's it's a much more organized format for me. But I want people on a daily basis to be aware of the things that come and go and the reasons behind them. The liberal media, right now they're focused on this border. They've created this incredible lie about the human rights on the border and all the things that are happening or not happening or blah, blah, blah. And that's the hot topic of the week. It'll change quickly because just like the Las Vegas shooting and Parkland gun rights and acid rain and the LGBT bathroom law and Antifa and Black Lives Matter, they change week to week based on what they're emotionally wrapped up in, and this is going to change. And so I like to point those things out. I'm going to get to something that doesn't change, James, and that is the continued oppression of climate change, and I'm using air quotes, deniers, because we're apparently in this group of law-breaking citizens that deny stories that actually aren't true. You wrote a story, and I'm going to get to the story in just a minute, about how you and I are basically the definition of climate change deniers. Old white racist people are climate change deniers, and we'll get to that in a second. But I've dug deeper into this, and I wanted to talk to you about this. In the early 30s, the Green Movement began. People don't know this, because they don't care to know it, number one. But I think there's an important point here. In Nazi Germany, the Green Movement began. There was a love of wind power, potentially of solar power. It had nothing to do with science and almost everything to do with religion. You had a group of people who were satanic cult, sun-worshipping freaks. This is the only way to put it. Their love of the sun and solar power had nothing to do with science and everything to do with a lot of what their, I don't want to say religious affiliation, but what the things that they chose to worship. These were evil people, and the sun was part of their religious, I don't know, foundation, I guess. They were sun worshipers, and I mean, that's not, you can find fact and data to back that up. But But it speaks to, in my opinion, one of the bigger reasons why this whole thing needs to be exposed is the initial motivation for the movement had nothing to do with actually economy or fuel or fossil fuels or the environment, and everything to do with some very dark, deep, sinister things.
It suddenly makes sense, doesn't it, when you see it in terms of a religion? Because religions don't need facts. They're about faith. And everything about the global warming scare is faith-based, because when you look at the facts, the mirage reveals itself to be nothing. I mean, it's just it's all computer projections and.
You're a versed and learned person, and when it comes to science, I mean, I would argue that your credentials multiply by a factor of 1 billion. Bill Nye, the science guys, who actually isn't a scientist and is just I think he's a less good-looking version of you, but he's dumb. But the fact of the matter is, when I ask you this question, I'm asking you a serious question, and because liberals and climate change people will say, "Oh, that's just a stupid answer." But can you name? And I'm sure there's something out there. Can you name one actual scientific fact that would endorse or enforce the fact that climate change is man's greatest danger? Is there anything scientifically proven that they could point to that would say, see, we were right?
No. It's the short answer. There isn't. There's nothing. There's nothing there right now.
Not the polar bears, right? Not the ice cap.
Theory.
Right. Right. I guess that's what I'm trying to ask you. We watched the 1970s in acid rain, and somehow they got away with that incredible lie. No one ever called them on it. I mean, you remember we were going to be like melting, like the Wicked Witch in Wizard of Oz from rain because it was so acidic, and it was going to be turning rivers and lakes and oceans into gigantic graveyards for wildlife and sea life, and it never happened. By 2000, and I've said this before, you go back to 1910, you can see a Baltimore newspaper talking about the coming ice age. So this is not something new, and it's never, and I asked that question seriously, James, because if there is a liberal listening to this show, I want them to go, and I'm not chastising or, I want you to go to Google and work your butt off and find something valid, something scientific, something factual that you can literally look at, see, and more importantly, feel as a factual backing to climate change other than scientists tell you it is. Because that's all they have, and it's a very, much like the Tommy Robinson thing, it's a very forceful, aggressive movement that if you stand in front of, they want to run over you. They want, about 2 years ago, I remember in this country, we had a Democratic politician who was out saying out loud, climate change denial should be an actual federal crime.
That's how it operates. I mean, the only reason that the scam has been able to last so long is because people in positions of authority, mainly in the science establishment, people with tenure at universities and so on, or people at places like NASA, and all the government institutions, and until recently, of course, at the EPA in the Obama era and before, these supposed experts have been able to say, look, we know what we're talking about. You don't know what you're talking about. We're the experts. And, of course, it helped that they are in control of the data sets. NASA and NOAA have both been infiltrated by green zealots. And, I mean, you had James Hansen at NASA, who pretty much started off the whole scare with his infamous testimony in 1988.
Wasn't that the hockey stick?
No, where he testified, and he was visibly sweating because they chose to. Do you remember this story? They chose to film it on. They checked the weather forecasts, and they worked out what was going to be the hottest day of the year. And then the night before, they broke the air conditioning system, so the air conditioning wasn't working. So everyone was in this congressional testimony watching this.
I've never heard this.
He was sweating as he said that the temperatures being experienced that year were the hottest ever, and that this was a really, really serious problem. And the media went wild. They loved this stuff. And this was the guy from NASA. He's an activist. He's not a scientist.
Right. Well, and I got to tell you, if nothing else, the exposure recently of the FBI and the DOJ and the corruption and how high it goes, if that doesn't lead you to the conclusion that anybody anywhere can be as corrupt as they need to be if they're in power, NASA and NOAA are some of the most corrupt climate change pushers on the planet. And how do we know that, James? We know that because some of the key members of the climate change movement have come out and said, listen, we lied. We made up stuff. The data that we built our arguments on was fudged, was faked. The stuff that we've said isn't really happening, and those people are dismissed as loon. They were the bedrock of the climate change movement. The second they said, "Wait a minute, you know what? We were wrong," they were called lunatics.
Yeah, it's going to take a while to turn the oil tank around.
Do you think it ever gets turned around? I don't think it does. I don't think it does.
No, you're right, because there will always be people who.
Well, I think, James, it's because people like you and I are doing podcasts instead of doing the news. The news is what the people are hearing, and that's the problem. It's become a situation now where I think you have to be able to and willing to go out and put some effort into finding out the truth, and they're not willing to do that.
You know what? I was thinking about this the other day. My wife, who doesn't spend her time on the internet like I do, so I'm always keeping up to speed with what's going on.
Right.
And so at the end of the day, she wants to listen to the news on the BBC, and I say, look, why are we listening to this crap? And she said, well, it's the news. I said, no, it's not the news. It's the BBC's idea of what the news should be. Given from a completely left-wing perspective. I don't trust a word they're saying. I will not listen to this shit. So we have an argument about it because it has reached that stage where the traditional sources of authority, BBC, MSNBC, whatever, the mainstream media, the newspapers, New York Times, we cannot trust them at all. I mean, right. They are so one-sided. There's so much liberal bias, left-wing bias, that why would you want to expose yourself to this crap?
Yeah, no, I mean it's fair. I think that, and the one number that haunts us as truth seekers is the 97%, and I've tried to explain to people that it wasn't 97%. There was an online survey, a 2-question online survey sent to I think over 10,000 scientists. Only about 1,300 responded. And of those 1,300, there were 79 climate change scientists, and 77 of those 79 answered yes to, do you think man is impacting climate change? Which could be, which is as nebulous as anything. But when you go 77 of 79, that's 97%. Those 77 scientists have given President Obama and every other liberal politician in the world the what they believe is the right to say the 97% number, which is a complete farce. And all you have to do is Google and look beyond the initial articles, because Google is as screwed and skewed as Facebook and Twitter in how they are doing searches now, because it's funny how it's changing. You have to dig a little bit, but you'll find the truth is it wasn't 97% of scientists. And if you care about the truth and care enough to look, you'll find that was a complete farce. And then you start going, okay, if that's a lie, then what else? And this starts to unravel, and that's why I'll be forever grateful to you for pointing me to the book Green Tyranny, because Rupert Darwall does a phenomenal job of going back to what we were talking about, the Nazi Germany and the origination of the movement, and how, and I got to tell you, I was blown away by this, how powerful a country the size of Rhode Island in Sweden is in the world global scheme of things. Because they pull the purse strings and handle the things that go with. I mean, it's just amazing to me.
Yep, absolutely.
And so look, to pull it around full circle, where are we? And I ask you to summarize. I know it's not an easy question, but climate change is clearly off the table as a front page story right now, which funny.
Well, it is in the U.S., Kurt. I mean, I think you've got the propaganda machine hasn't gone away. You've got the Pope talking about it. You've got the United Nations talking about it. You've got the European Union talking about it. You've got most British MPs talking about it. You've got most Canadian MPs talking about it. There's a whole industry out there, and I mean, even in the US, you've got some holdovers who are trying to push the narrative. You've got Tom Steyer, don't forget. He's still got his billions, which he's pumping into it. So you can't just shut the industry down, even though it's based on fantasy.
Yeah, I just wonder where this goes next, because this movement has brought crowds and people like the Antifa group kind of a cause to rally around, and apparently, and I'll I didn't get to it, but I'll get to it next time. There's a great article that James wrote. It's up on Breitbart.com today. Study: climate change deniers are old white racists, which is kind of the liberals' calling card when it comes to people calling them out. They just go to the racism card, or you're seeing it with Trump now, the Nazi card. James, it's always a pleasure, buddy. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. Look forward to catching up again.
Thanks a lot, Cap. Bye-bye.
Sonny's Corner with Sonnie Johnson.
Everything in hip-hop is not bad. Kanye agreed with us, so let's love him today until he raps tomorrow and you turn your back. Because if you jump off when the fun of the moment is over, then you are in fact making Kanye the token he is accused of being. So please, don't do that. Don't go there.
Sonny's Corner with Sonnie Johnson. Saturday from 1 to 3 p.m. East on Sirius XM Patriot 125.
We want to hear from you. Tweet the show at Garrick38. Once again, here's Curt Schilling.
As I told you before, every week, hopefully, will continue to be on Wednesday or Thursday, the Sonnie Johnson time. Sonnie is the host of Did She Say That?, her podcast that comes out on Wednesdays. More importantly to me, she is becoming a presence on the radio. She is the host of Sonny's Corner, which is on every Saturday, Sirius XM Patriot 125. From 1 to 3, I've had a chance to listen to it the last couple of weeks and actually be a part of the show. I love it. You can feel and hear and see the passion with which she does everything in life, which I think is one of the places where we have common ground. She is the one and only Sonnie Johnson. Good morning, Sonnie.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful, darling. It's always a pleasure to hear your voice, and I missed you the last couple of weeks, so I'm anxious to catch up. So I got to ask you, I was saying earlier, listen, we're a nation of billions, or a world of billions. We're a nation of 300 million people. There's never going to be a one-size-fits-all, and anybody that says so is an idiot. And I look at this border stuff. An initial story that the news and the media lied about is they showed us pictures of the Obama administration and what they were doing during the Obama administration. And President Trump reacted to a very significant movement of people who said it was inhumane to separate parents from their kids. My response was, on what planet do you get to take your child to jail when you break the law? But he did. He signed an executive order trying to keep families together. I'm curious to know kind of your look at this entire thing from start to where it is today, how you feel about this, and what you think about it going forward.
Well, this is why I talk so much about going on offense instead of playing defensive. So just to use this as an example, we knew that this was going to happen. It happened under Bush. It happened under Obama in 2014. We knew that this was going to happen. It is inevitable that if you have a zero tolerance policy and you have a court order in place that says kids cannot go with their parents to jail, then there were going to be these pictures. There were going to be these circumstances. But rather than going out and getting ahead of it, this is what we know is going to happen. And I want us to look at the example that Israel set. So when they moved the capital to Jerusalem, before the move actually happened, Israel did a preemptive kind of information drop. They are going to do this. They are going to use kids at the border. They are going to use, they let everybody know. We know that this is what they're going to do. This is going to happen. So when it happened, Israel was allowed to say, we told you this was going to happen. This is what they do. This is how they operate. It came from a place of predictability and knowing what your adversaries are going to do. This is why I get so mad at Republicans. You know what they're going to do, yet rather than going on the offensive, rather than putting your message of complete understanding of what is going to happen, we don't want this to happen, but this is going to happen as a circumstance for everything that has led up to this. The failure of this, what Trump does every single time, the failure of every administration before us to solve this. This is where we are. Do we wish it was different? Yes. But this is the circumstance we have to deal with now. And we have to stick to our guns if we are going to fix it. But rather than going on the offensive, rather than, and I can't even fully blame Trump for this because of the Russia investigation. He has a reason to be distracted. But what ticks me off more than anything is the Republican Party, their whole messaging apparatus, and their inability to get on offense, but their necessity to always play defense. And if I could continue for 1 second, it's detrimental when it comes to your news cycles. And everybody needs to understand this. The whole entire news cycle now is stuck on immigration. Not even Trump can change the news cycle and its focus right now. And this is literally like the first time that Trump has an inability to change the news cycle. The reason that is because you have a conservative apparatus that only reacts to what the progressives do. So if the progressives start bitching, moaning, and whining and crying, you have a conservative apparatus that just says, well, you have no reason to do this. Let me show you, it's all defense instead of going out offensively, letting people know exactly why you're doing what you're doing. And adding into that, what we are importing more than importing people is the ideology. The same ideology that caused those people to flee from those South American countries are coming to America, and they are coming unchecked. They are coming unanswered. And we have to realize the real severity of this big picture as Americans to actually stop this ideology as well as the people coming in.
How do you get out in front of something? How do you get a message of warning and get when the microphone and the bullhorn is controlled by the left? I'm not making excuses, but I'm asking. The left controls the news cycle, and I'm not whining. I'm just stating a fact. Trump
has had an ability to control the news cycle, irregardless of what the progressive media has done. And if Trump would have been like, okay, look, this is what is going to happen. As soon as Jeff Sessions announced the zero tolerance policy, Trump could have came out. Or he could have got on Twitter. He could have been like, look, this is what is going to happen. This is what you are going to see. They are going to try to put me in a position where I have to back down. This is a Democratic plan. I am not the one that is going to play this game with them. It was the same way Israel did. They knew that this was going to happen. So they knew what the result was going to be. So they came out and told everybody, look, this is what is going to happen. And that's all Trump really had to do. And like I said, with him and the Russia investigation, you can see why his attention is divided. And I wish he would just stop and focus on what he's doing so he doesn't get hit with strategic problems like this. But the Republicans who have been through this time again, they should have saw it coming. Their messages should have been on point. They should have been everywhere, changing the focus, not only on television, but back in their districts amongst their voters, so that when this happened, their voters were like, you told us that this was going to happen. Like, okay, we see the pictures. We know it's heartbreaking, but you told us that this was going to happen. And if we actually want to get this problem solved, when this happens, we have to realize that this is going to solve it, rather than putting Band-Aids on it or giving us temporary relief of our feelings. You warned us ahead of time that this was going to happen. Now we have a chance to be like, okay, this is happening. Let's not get over emotional. Let's solve the problem. And we saw it happen in Israel, where Israel was allowed to defend itself because they precursed it. And that is something that Trump should be able to learn from now.
A couple things in response to that. Number one, I would argue that we're dealing with a person who isn't a politician. This is a guy who is a pragmatist, a problem solver, who gets things done by staying focused on the things he's trying to get done. And you need to rely, I would expect as the president, I would need to rely on people around me to help and advise as we move through this minefield. You know, hey, Mr. President, this is going to happen. Maybe we need to get out in front of that. And I'm not absolving him from blame, but at the end of the day, there's only 24 hours in a day. And from a focus perspective, I would imagine what's being exposed by the investigation and the FBI and the DOJ being as corrupt as they are. It doesn't feel to me like he's surrounded by a lot of people outside of the Oval Office that he can rely on and trust to do things like this. And again, I'm not making excuses for him, but he's not a politician. Maybe a politician looks at this and says, okay, what kind of political hay do I need to ruffle up to before this happens to avoid the message the media is going to send? I would like to think he's like that, but
I would suggest to Trump that maybe he needs to rethink about his inner circle and the people that are giving him the advice that they're giving him. And you can love Ivanka, and you can respect Jared, and you can have a respect for Melania's opinion because she's your wife. But this is a bigger fight than just your family. And maybe his inner circle needs to really consist of more people from, America. And you can have us around you talking instead of just rallying us to cheer you on and make your ego bigger. So I'm not, like I said, I hold the Republican apparatus, who should know better, more responsible than Trump. So the Paul, you know what I'm saying? I hold them in a higher responsibility level than I hold Trump, because they knew that this was going to happen. They are the polished politicians, and they should have been out in front with the messaging.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I feel like I don't feel like he's getting what he needs in his inner circle. I think at times he is, but I certainly don't think that. I think he needs. I wonder. Does he have someone in his inner circle that challenges him? And I'm asking. When you. When I look at a guy like LeBron James, the thing that I get from LeBron is there's nobody in his inner circle that would say, dude, don't do that. That looks stupid. Or hey, let's not do this. This is just not going to be it. Does Trump have that person? Because I feel like sometimes, yesterday, I don't know if you saw the rally in Minnesota yesterday, but he comes out and starts talking trash on someone getting booted, and he just opens himself up to things I don't want to deal with that other crap. Do you think he has that person in that inner circle that says, Mr. President, don't do this. That's stupid. I'm not sure that person exists. I'm
coming to kind of like the bull in the china shop a little more than I did at the beginning of Trump. So I'm kind of liking the bull in the china shop a little bit more. But I caught one part of his speech from last night, and it takes me back to the initial thing that I saw about him when he said, the other side call themselves elite, and he said, what makes them elite? I'm richer than them. I'm more successful than them. You know what I'm saying? I have businesses with my name on it. They don't have that. I won the presidency. They did not win that. What makes them so elite? And that is what Trump should take to the black community. Like that attitude, that is what needs to go. Not what do you have to lose? No. That's not the attitude you take with you. You take that attitude with you. and you take, then let's build with us. And you know what I'm saying? You take that attitude in. And I hope that he grows into being comfortable giving that attitude to more than just his base. And I think if he could give that attitude to more people than just his base, he would get a lot more respect than he gets laughed at. You know what I'm saying? Because you would have to respect somebody who walks in that stature.
Well, if you think about where we're at as a nation, and you know, there's the election, a lot of the election focused on the middle class and the haves and the 1% and all this other stuff. He's a member of the upper 1.5% who, by definition, when you look at the liberal media, he has become a man of the people. He talks for the common man, even though he's never lived a common man's life a day in his life. And that in and of itself is an incredible feat from a political standpoint. And I agree with you. I think
it's because he believes that you can do it too.
Right.
That's what the difference is. With the progressives, they have a belief that they did it. They're lucky. They're fortunate. You know what I'm saying? So let them reach back and pat the heads of the little ones that have no chance. But he actually believes if I get the money moving, if I get the regulation out of the way, you know, your name is going to be on a building next. Like, he actually believes in the ambition and the drive of the American people. So, like, that is the major difference, but why he can pull it off as opposed to the others who just think, like the Warren Buffett, are like, yeah, I can do this, but you'll never get here. Like, those kind of people with that kind of attitude, they'll never get that across with the American people.
Well, I mean, that's a great point in the sense that President Trump is conservative in the sense you don't need the government to be successful. You don't need it. You know, we'll get the pylons and the bumps out of the way. You can do this if you just do it yourself. I mean, and the left would have you believe you can't do anything without us. We have to explain to you, you know, and that is that is in a nutshell the difference between the two parties. One party, the Trump Americans, are accountable. They want to be held accountable. They want you to hold yourself accountable. And the other party wants no relationship to accountability. And it's something as simple as this. When someone runs over somebody else with a car, we talk about the murderer driving the car. When somebody stabs a bunch of people and commits a crime, we talk about the murderer. When somebody shoots someone and shoots more than one person, we talk about the gun. The lack of accountability on the left is kind of a hallmark of how they want to go forward. And I got to tell you, when you look at human beings by nature, right? I mean, we're a creature, excuse me, we're kind of trained to take the path of least resistance. Well, hell, if I can live my life and not have to work, and I can get money and sit on my ass, then I'm going to choose to do that. I mean, that is.
No, actually, that's not the truth. And that belief is what got black people to where they are right now. Because to believe that they would actually take the money and just sit on their, butts, that negates that whole Trump spirit that, oh no, I can build, I can grow, I can do this, I can do that. The black people are like, this is not for us. I'm going to get more. I am going to have more. And then you go out into a progressive society where the opportunity is thin, and that Trump spirit that you can build, that doesn't exist. It's a mindset that tells you government is supposed to do it for you. And the black man especially has rejected that. And so when you say that if you give this to people, they'll just accept it, I am telling you, you can look at the murder rates in these cities and see that they will not accept it. They will go out and find a black market way to get to the financial independence that they seek and they desire. So it is a fraudulent statement to say if you just give it to them, they'll take it. That's not the case. And not understanding that is what prevents us from creating the opportunities that will get these young black men to go after legal, legit ways of making money and not towards the black market ways, the violent ways, the drugs, guns, those kind of things. So we have to change that mentality, and that's why I said Trump needs to go in with that mentality of, you are next. You are going to create this. You are going to build this. And don't worry about talking about welfare. These people don't want welfare. They need a president to go in and say, you're next. How are you going to rebuild your city? I got your back. You're going to own this. You're going to operate this. Your name is going to be on that building. You are going to be everything that I have ever been and more, because I removed the roadblocks for you. That's the attitude that you take with you, not this whole idea of understanding that if you just give these people welfare, they'll accept it. That is not the case.
I'm with you. I'm waiting to see how this plays out. Sonnie, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to catching up again.
Always. Thank you.
Great day today. I always enjoy talking to James and to Sonnie. Closing out today, a very, very easy day to pick winners and losers. My loser today and a loser for, pretty much his whole life is Peter Fonda. I'm not even going to repeat the tweets, but he basically asked for Barron Trump to be put in a room full of pedophiles and molested. And he basically used a word that I haven't heard of in 40 years to describe Kirsten Nielsen and prove what a low-life piece of garbage he is. The Fonda family is as white trash as it comes. His sister, who got American POWs beaten by betraying their trust, who has been at the forefront of anti-American movement forever. And so Peter Fonda wins, going away, the loser of today. And I'm not talking about me when I give the winner. I'm talking about the company. My winner today is Breitbart, and it dawned on me today as I was looking through. Anytime I try to find news, and by news I mean reports of an event or an incident. I'm not talking about opinion or op-eds. I'm talking about true news. I don't know where else to go to get actual factual news. And again, I'm not talking about politically biased reports. I'm talking about the events that happened, the comments that are being spoken, the tweets, and the stuff that is happening on a daily basis. And that there are things that are happening in this country, in the world, that are just beyond repulsive, that I'm only reading on Breitbart, from Hollywood's insistence on being the trash that they are, and the things that they say and do, to the things going on at the border, the facts that are at the border. Our Breitbart Texas desk with Brandon Darby, I would tell you, is the only place to get the truth anymore. I'm not. The other stuff I'm seeing is bullshit. So my loser, Peter Fonda, going away. My winner today is Breitbart. Tomorrow, I'm going to have Rick Unger on. Rick is a Forbes political columnist. He has his own show on SiriusXM. He is a liberal. No matter what, we're going to be on the opposite side of some topic tomorrow, and it should be fun to listen to. Guys, thank you for joining me. As always, for your time. God bless you. Have a great day. We'll catch up with you guys tomorrow.
Breitbart News Tonight with Joel Pollack and Rebecca Mansour.
I think that it's the epitome of hypocrisy. Unless you fall in line with their liberal agenda, this uniparty, globalist, liberal agenda, they will never support you. They use the whole gender issue, of course, as some kind of tool to prop up their messaging, but it's the phoniest thing.
SiriusXM Patriot, Channel 125.